right, Melvin Farmer, how's it going?
How's it going with you, man? I'm doing all right. Glad to have for you inviting me back. Thank you, young brother.
Yeah, for sure, man. Glad to have you back, man. You know, it's always a good time when you're here.
Oh yeah.
Always got some interesting things to talk about, man. Well, I thought we'd just start off with the biggest news coming out of LA, and that is the unfortunate murder of PnB Rock that happened at Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles in South Central off of
Manchester, Maine.
Maine and Manchester. Yeah, and it's just an unfortunate situation, man. We see these situations in LA, and it just seems like we keep seeing people make the same mistake over and over and over again. What was your take on the situation when you learned about it?
Well, prior to that, you also had other Kodak Black incident, the murder that happened with another rapper at the Beverly Center. You had Salsa Walker that had just got robbed or attempted robbery earlier that day. You had the Super Bowl incidents. So to most people that are on the internet and social media, you would think that's a new phenomenon, but it's not. It's always been on the streets, particularly in Los Angeles, to where rappers, actors, entertainers, so forth and so on, you could become meat to the street when you venture out there. You know, LA and this misconception that the nation have about LA of swimming pools and movie stars, when a lot of times you come out here and end up leaving in a graveyard. But what an OG would have did, and I don't mean no original gangster, I'm talking about a real OG, where the term meant original Crip, somebody that's been in this maze that made it out, to where a lot of these kids and youths or whatever are born into it and they see no way out. What should have happened is somebody should have walked up to him, like I've done many a times, and just said, "Hey, young player, do you know where you at? I don't want to see you get hurt." So that was my thinking of that. But also, when it comes to rappers, actors, or entertainer, the attitude in Los Angeles is if you get caught slipping, we're going to make sure you fall. But that's not gang related. In fact, we hear all these speculations about what happened, and that's just like when a gang murder happened, and well, who did it? We don't know who did it. The police, a black, a white, a Mexican, until we get some official information about it. So I would hold judgment on what happened, because also I know of a murder of a man that was shot 15 times right up the street at the very same time. But who speaks for him? Who speaks for the other man that used to rap for $1 to say a few bars so he could get something to eat? He was shot 8 times out here in the streets. So when you're dealing with murder with me and talking about a murder, when you're out here in these streets playing Russian roulette, it comes back to the color of blood, which is the color that they shed when they dead. So it didn't shake me up. It's not nothing new, but I would think that you don't have to check in, but you would at least have a friend wherever you go in any city that you're in.
What's the history of that Roscoe's? Is it like a dangerous place to be?
Well, Roscoe's, for those that only see it on television, it's in the heart of one of the most deadliest areas in America. And the people don't know the freeway, which is the 110, splits what they call South Central. Before it was South Central, when the Crips and the Bloods started, you had East Side, West Side, and Compton. So this is a hub and a base, particularly on the East Side, that had a history of gangs prior to Crips and Bloods. You're talking about 1930, 1940, when that side of town was the hot spot. Then in the 70s, with the black exploitation era, the comeback, Charleston Blue, the pimping and whoring, the best thing going, Nicky Barnes and them selling dope, cocaine, it's a status drug, the game start flipping. But the history over at that Roscoe's, they've had another celebrity that was shot maybe 15, 20 years ago. And because of that celebrity getting shot up there, they implemented where they hired guys from the neighborhood to start policing there. So one thing I can say it's more likely than not you had at least 2 security guards that were sitting outside. In fact, I think the recent testimony or update said there were 2 security guards there. In fact, if you look on my Facebook page, you'll see me interviewing them the night after the murder, where I went up there just to check on them because they're allies with us. So a lot of things you hear on these internets, they boots not to the ground, and they talking when the camera's not around. So we giving you real news from the sources that are actually involved with what's going on in this city.
You know, learning about that, man, you know, and him going in there wearing all that jewelry, and then you had the, you know, his girlfriend put out the location, dropped their location where they were, which, you know, a friend of mine kind of pointed out that when she took the picture and dropped the location, that would have been after they had already ordered their food. So there wouldn't have really been probably a lot of time
No,
between
that's
that.
not
So
true. Not true.
a lot of people kind of believe that, you know.
Now, let me tell you at that Roscoe's, everything's prepared, and that's a great place to eat. You got 3 locations usually they go. Hollywood, across the street from Capitol Records. Back in the day, that's where they used to take them to entertain the rappers, Mike Tyson, back in the 80s. Then you had the other one on Venice, where we used to have a radio show with Roscoe Media in their studio. Then you have the third one, which they have more. But over at that Roscoe's, their food is served fresh, cooked right then. And I looked at the meal that they had, waffles, chicken, yams, because I'm researching to look for the combination and the motives. And I know how long it would take from the time you ordered that and 2 people too. You got a difference of about 30, 35 minutes where you're sitting in there to where somebody, you're talking about a brazen act. To where most.
So hold on, sorry. So they walk in, they order the food. How long does it take them to get the food?
At least 20 to 30 minutes.
So at least 20 to 30 minutes. That means they didn't have a picture taken until they were there 20 to 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And that's enough time to set it up with somebody. You're talking about a brazen act of walking into an establishment where you got one door you walk in and the other one at the back, to where guns might be behind the counter, police might be sitting in there undercover, people might be waiting on you to get out, and you go and do that when you could just sit outside and wait and stalk them and do an easier route. So that kind of tells you that I don't think this was a spur of the moment to where a young lady showed a location, not for that brazen of an act. That's not to get down. It was an easier way to do that. So you can take it and infer what it was. In fact, the information that's coming now is they're looking for some jewelry and this and that and other things. But who's gonna pawn some jewelry at the jewelry store? If you're a jacker, a robber, and people talking about this gang related, this could have happened anywhere. Anywhere in America, particularly in these pockets of poverty that Obama called them, or these rat-infested areas that Trump called them in Baltimore. From chokeholds to water holes in reverse, Republican or Democrat. Ain't nothing changed in America. So why do you think the things that are happening now with the same stuff that going on in America, the same people looking for the same answers, the same change? We have to start looking at more than what's going on in these streets and start looking at this political machine that's really holding us back. So at the end of the day, with that young man, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he should have knew that. He knew that. He went to taking a game of where his pride got in the way of common sense. I go all across America. I don't call it checking in. That's stereotyping. But what's wrong with having a friend or somebody you know in a community in which you don't know? Because it's easy to kill a stranger. Very easy to kill a stranger. Wait to pay judgment. We don't know what happened on that. You got teams of jackers. Those are real jackers. To where when we see guys with jewelry on and stuff like that, when you're a jacker, they want immediate gratification. That means they not selling dope. They want whatever they do, they get paid right then and there. And so when a jacker see these rappers, actors, entertainers, whoever, and they come out to these streets and they got that jewelry on, they don't look no more different like in the 80s when they had the couriers coming to Los Angeles and they got a handcuff tied to a briefcase on their wrist full of jewelry, 500, a million, and they trailing and them robbing them. That's the same look they getting. They just put the titles that it's a rapper, actor, but anybody could be subject to getting a violent act to occur upon them once you leave the streets. It's just less prevalent in the white communities because they won't allow that to happen. They'll get rid of the politicians if they allow that to happen. So we have to look at society as a whole, how they create these mazes to where, like when the riots happened, you could burn up all of LA, but they put the National Guards around Beverly Hills, Malibu. They wasn't letting you go there. And now all those buildings that were burnt, they wasn't replaced, but now because of SoFi Stadium, gentrification is going on to where they're tearing down buildings, creating vacant lots to where this cartel money is floating around here. We got to talk about homelessness. We need to talk about mental health. We need to talk about despair. We need to talk about hopelessness. It's a lot of things that need to be talked about other than what the problem is. Let's talk about the solutions, and let's see who's stepping to the mic.